welcome back. The Minister of State for Aviation in Nigeria, Hadi Sirika, has asked aviation unions to be a part of the Concession Project Delivery Committee so as to contribute to the success of the process.
Now, the Minister's confirmation of federal government's plan to concession for international airports has thrown up varied views within the aviation sector. A correspondent, Lilian Ezemark, reports on that.
Government's plan is to get investors who would efficiently manage the Murtala Mohammed Airport, Lagos, Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, Abuja, Port Harcourt International Airport, and Aminu Kano Airport, Kano, so as to get the best of the airports in the interest of Nigerians and the economy. The minister, who expressed disappointment on the dilapidated state of the airport, said, "It is a misconception that the government is planning to sell the nation's airports."
Concession in the airports, beginning with the big four, then also add on to the big four maybe some about 6 that will be dedicated to perishable terminals for exports, would help us to also grow aviation business in Nigeria.
He disclosed that government does not have the funds to run the facilities any longer and asked those with the wherewithal to invest in them. He explained that the airports would be concessioned for a period within which government would earn revenue from them until the period of concession ends and the property returned to government. For him, the move would enable the government not just to grow and expand the sector, but would pave way to establish Nigeria as a hub.
We must be able to develop this airport. Today we are doing 50 million passengers per annum. We believe with the right things in place, Nigeria has the potential of doing 70 to 100 million passengers within 5 years, easy.
But members of Air Transport Service Senior Staff Association, ATSAN, and the National Union of Air Transport Employees, NUATE, have kicked against the plan for fear of job losses of its members.
Why will government not leave those airports that are already viable economically? They can stay on their own. They can exist as a separate entity. Why not leave them and then give virgin land to the concessionaires?
Some frequent flyers are afraid that the security of the country would be compromised.
Concessioning our airports to private operators for now, 1, is risky. 2, it can lead to a state of foreigners just capturing the country anyhow. And again, it can increase incessant bombing at the airports.
Others call for transparency, which they claim is lacking in the concession agreement between Bicotny Aviation Services Limited and Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria.
Open dissemination of information about rules, procedures, processes with truth and integrity. If they can do this, then it will greatly help not just the aviation industry, but the whole country as well.
With concessioning, government expects operational efficiency and profitability of the airports. Cases of power outages or dysfunctional air conditioners at the airports at various times, which have been a source of shame to Nigeria, are expected.
All right, you're welcome back. Now, joining us is an airline pilot and safety advocate, Captain Dung and aviation editor for New Telegraph newspaper, Wole Shadare. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Okay, let's start with you. Rwang, NAMTA, the National Association of Nigeria Air Travel Agencies, actually says a state of emergency should be declared in the aviation sector. Is it that bad that it would need a state of emergency to be declared?
Thank you for that question. I'd like to answer the question.
Okay.
Why do they think a state of emergency needs to be declared?
Tell us.
Well, that's NANTA. I don't think it has gotten to the point where we'll call it a state of emergency, but it is getting to a critical position where something has got to be done. And it is not just a part, it's the entire system. And I would say that we need to seriously consider restoring credibility, not just to aviation, but in government. Because the government is the overall overarching authority in the country. And aviation is just part of that. Those in government or those who are responsible for aviation, the Minister of Transportation and the Minister of State for Aviation, are government officials. And let me just say this. If you look at it from 1999 to now, aviation has had over 10 ministers, each of them with a lifespan of about 17 months. That does not show stability. And usually once a minister comes in, there's a culling out of the system. There is a removal of all the technocrats at the top, and most of the time that is counterproductive, because I would have preferred a situation where you leave those managing the parastatals and beam a searchlight to see what has happened while they were there before you remove them. But they just remove them and bring fresh ones, and the stealing and fraud continues unabated. So even those who are looking after the system need to understand that we're reaching a critical point now. Of course, we have had the intervention funds, and the money has just been frittered out, and now we have airlines that are almost unsustainable. And it's just a coincidence, about 3 years ago, late 2013 or 2012, I think, Sherari was part of a press conference we held, and we were looking at scenarios and trying to evaluate what is happening. And we said that in about 5 years, it might be tough to find real viable Nigerian airlines, even one single one. And it's almost coming to a head as it is now.
And you insist there's no need to declare a state of emergency?
Well, it is. We had lived without aviation. And like I said in an interview to another organization recently, we will not stop having aeroplanes flying. Only we will not be the ones flying it. For instance, A-Sky came over to help out when Arik had that imbroglio of not paying the insurance, and so they were grounded for a day. We are part of the West African Banjul Accord group. If all our airlines fail, airlines like Ghana, Togo, wherever it is, will invoke their fifth freedom rights and actually come and do their flights for us. And possibly we'll look for alternative sources.
All right. The question of concession has been there. Now, one would say certainly there's some partial concession going on. But what are really the fears? Well, let me ask you, from those who work within the aviation system, what are the fears of outright concession?
I think the major fear here is about job losses, and the workers have expressed that continuously. To say, what is government putting on the table? What is government doing to assure them that they won't lose their jobs? But there's no way you're going to concession the airports that jobs will not be lost. And the minister has come to say, no, jobs will not be lost, but we are going to get more people to be employed. And I said no. Definitely the new concessionaires will want to come in, do their things, bring their own people. And if they come in, they are going to take a lot of jobs from FAN workers. But we must also be very careful that this airport still belongs to FAN. The concessionaires are just coming to invest their money, use it for a period of time. And FAN still has control over what they're going to do. But the manpower is going to be reduced. And if you also look at it, just 2 weeks ago, the minister said more people are going to leave the sector. You have over 88 general managers. I don't actually know what they're managing. I think the agencies are too top-heavy, and I do not think that we need 88 general managers to man these formations. 88 general managers to do what they're supposed to do. We need to start looking at them. Are they being engaged properly? Are they being placed properly? I think the answer is no. But be that as it may, we also must be very careful not to throw the baby away with the bathwater. There are some of them that are very productive. There are some of them that are very efficient. There are some of them that are very good. We should begin to look at them and take the good ones and allow the bad ones to go. Definitely, I think the major issue here is job losses. But the minister has also said they have put up a program to ensure that they are not going to put up a program to manage the situation, but we need to see this. we need to know what exactly the minister or the ministry is doing or the federal government is doing about this. The minister has also assured that with concession, the traffic figure has the capacity to double what we have now. Presently, we have about 50 million passengers using our airports. I think that is very, very poor. It's even less than 10% of the population of Nigeria. Okay. What it simply means is that people are not really traveling.
Right.
Yes, people are not really traveling because with the market, we have the market in Nigeria, but we are not traveling.
So, Rwang Pam, not too long ago, things seemed to be looking up for Nigeria's aviation sector, and all of a sudden, everything went down south. What exactly is responsible for this?
Well,
maybe we should take a quick break.
Let's you will answer that after we go on a break. Now, let's go on a break and we'll come back to discuss the topic. We are talking about aviation in Nigeria. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
Welcome back. It's talk time, and we're focusing our attention on the Nigeria's aviation sector. There are fears that this sector, if something is not done quickly, could just be the last straw that will break the camel's back, if one could put it that way. We have Captain Dung Rwang Pam, is in the studio, a pilot and safety advocate, and of course, editor of New Telegraph newspaper, Wole Shadari. Gentlemen. So, Nigeria's aviation sector, things were looking up, like I asked before, went on that break. All of a sudden, everything just took a turn for the worse, because you had a time when so many people were coming into the industry, and you'd wonder if it wasn't that, good, why would it be attracting investors, especially local investors?
It is true, things were looking pretty stable some time back. But what has just happened is a very normal process. It is harvest time. So we are harvesting what we planted. Editor
of New Telegraph newspaper, Wole Shadari. Gentlemen, so Nigeria's aviation sector, things were looking up, like I asked before, went on that break. All of a sudden, everything just took a turn for the worse, because you had a time when so many people were coming into the industry. And you'd wonder if it wasn't that, good, why would it be attracting investors, especially local investors?
It is true, things were looking pretty stable some time back. But what has just happened is a very normal process. It is harvest time. So we are harvesting what we planted some years ago. And it's their litany of things and events. We don't want to go back, but I would tell you that we had a press conference in 2004, and the title there was Drifting in Turbulent Waters, and we were having a snapshot of the aviation industry. And not long after then, we had those crashes in 2006, 2 crashes, and we made another presentation. It was when safety comes last. However, incidentally, it was the same 2006 that the regulator was giving autonomy. And safety standards went up. Very few accidents. But there was a failing on the part of the regulator as well. They were complacent. They were happy that there are no more accidents. And they sort of laid back on their oars. And what we're having now is the economies of the system has crept in and is trying to supersede safety with regard to the operators. The complacency was general. And they forgot that without sound safety systems in place and sound economic systems to back them up, aviation or any business will not be sustainable. So they got to the point whereby that economic regulation on the part of the regulator, the NCAA, was not at par with what was happening. And of course, things have gone haywire now. So most of the airlines are just going out of business.
And you have so many
and we're not having
accidents.
Pulling out. That is correct. That's the same thing with the economy. That's why I say don't just look at aviation, look at the whole
overall.
That's right, microcosm of the system. And you're looking at Central Bank of Nigeria, and you're looking at Minister of Finance, because these are the two that more or less look at the monetary policy.
Maybe.
That is correct. You also have to look at, yes, petroleum and other things. So it's a ripple effect of the neglect by administrations and those managing the system. And that is why we're having some serious problems now. Unfortunately, it looks like everything is going wrong at the same time.
Now, but when it comes to safety,
yes.
I want to dwell on that a little. Are we better off now when it comes to safety from your assessment?
Yes, we're better off.
Okay.
And that is because there is a wider stakeholder engagement.
Okay.
There is now a consumer protection unit. And so consumers can actually report and say, this is what we observe, or we're not happy with the service. And the NCAA is taking that on board. A lot has been done on that safety part.
Okay.
But when it comes to other parts, quality of service, people think, oh, come on, you're going overboard. This is not the United States or the United Kingdom. You shouldn't ask for that. But it is our right. So I think what we're looking at now and what we're experiencing is the foundation has been weakened over time due to neglect or complacency. Neglect by the regulator, complacency by the airlines themselves. And unfortunately, with the recession and the dollar, we have now found out that perhaps we should have done some things a long time ago. A long time ago. And MRO, maintenance should be done in-house. We have been practicing this for over 40 years. We do not have one single facility to be able to maintain the aircrafts that we fly. We do not even have facilities to do the recurrency that happens to every pilot twice in a year. And it is not that they were not aware. All the times that we have made any public presentations, we had always mentioned these two bits. We need to be able to have the skills in-house.
Are you sure you've been directing this sessions, questions to the right people?
Well,
who really do understand the workings of the aviation sector and how it is the catalyst to turn any economy around?
You see, it's a bit difficult to point a finger and say what is really wrong, and that is why I think we have to look at this from the top all the way down. Okay. The current minister, Honorable Minister of Aviation, actually was a colleague of mine. We're in school, at engineering school at the same time. And he's been in touch with the system. He knows how it runs. Unfortunately, he's come at a difficult time that the financial support is not there. I mean, just about a week ago, he lamented that only 43% of the money allocated to the Ministry of Aviation has been released. Out of the 216 billion, only 43 has been released, and this is November. So things are a bit difficult. They are aware of this. There are other non-governmental organizations that have been making public utterances as well to that effect, but the leaders possibly just don't care.
Okay. As a way to bring Faladele shortly after this, Shada, let me come to you on this. Going back to the issue of concession. Now, the minister has said that if the concession goes through as it's supposed to be, they'll be able to raise about 100 million people can use the ports, the airport, and all of that. Now, how would the concession translate into the number of, or up the game of the number of people who use the airport in Nigeria?
I think the major problem we have is that people are not traveling, maybe because of the facilities you have. Okay. At most of the airports, the airports are in terrible shape. But apart from that, I think we also need to put a lot of things in place. We need to have aviation fuel, which presently we don't have now. The minister said 2 refineries will be dedicated to that. We hope that these things will come up as quickly as possible. The Port Harcourt refinery and the Kaduna refinery. So this will be able to cushion the effects of scarcity of Jet A1. If you also look at it, we need a lot of facilities, like I've said. Hopefully these investors will bring in their money. We'll begin to have a very good duty-free shops, because what we have now is nothing to write home about. And we begin to look at the airport as a catalyst to promoting development or to add to the GDP of the economy. A lot of people will have to come to the airport. If your airports are very good, people will come, do their shopping. like what you have in Frankfurt and in Dubai. Most times you don't even need to travel. You just come to the airport, sit down, and you also make it a very big hub. Also look at transit. Do we have a very good transit at Lagos Airport? The answer is no. Do you also have facilities that can link the Murtala Mohammed International Airport with the domestic airport? The answer is no. So it doesn't give you the option of using the Lagos airport. You will prefer to use some other airports to do your business. So you're taking traffic away from Lagos or from most of the airports. A lot of people are not flying. They go to Ghana. Some go to Ghana because of cheap fares, because of a lot of things. So you are reducing traffic. But if we have all these things in place, you're going to attract more passengers, more people.
And we hear that Ghana is cashing in on the gap that's been created in Nigeria's
definitely, Ghana
sector.
will catch up, but you can't still compare aviation in Nigeria to what you have in Ghana. Nigeria is still a very strong market compared to Ghana, but there are certain things.
Well, you have airlines
but there are
already,
certain things. But there are certain things.
Going to Ghana, yes, and lodging their crew in hotels in Ghana instead of Nigeria. So it's already having
it's already having it's already having problem.
Industry.
But I look at it that Nigeria is a very strong hub. No matter what we have done, is a very strong aviation market. What we have done, and I keep on saying that you can't compare what you have in Nigeria with the market we have in Nigeria. These airlines, who are they carrying? Definitely, they are not carrying Ghanaians, they are carrying Nigerians. So most airlines will still prefer to come to Nigeria because of the yield. If you look at the airfare, business class in Nigeria is very, very expensive compared to what you have in Ghana. And Nigerians still have slush fund to enjoy themselves. And that is why Nigeria will still be a very strong market. But we need to put certain things in place. We need to put all the facilities in place where the regulation has to be top notch. We need to do a lot of things to sustain that strength. Yes, we're losing certain things to Ghana, but not in that quantity and magnitude.
Is it likely we'll get them back, everything we're losing to Ghana?
Oh, it's not impossible.
Okay.
If we put, like Captain has said, if we put all the necessary things in place, we'll get there. We found ourselves in this position because we prepare for what we are getting now. We didn't do what we're supposed to do. Like I keep on saying, the airport remodeling was a scam on Nigeria. It wasn't properly done. A lot of things were not done. The radio communication, he is a pilot. I think he can do more on that. The radio communication between the pilot and the air traffic is not too good.
Okay. All right.
Maybe before
we certainly have to go on break now, and then we come back. Now, when we talk about Nigeria and Ghana, it's just for the sake of good competitiveness, because West Africa is West Africa. Nigerians.
Yeah, but Ghana, they're already reducing their airfares by 25%.
Yeah.
If, you know, reports that one has heard, anything to go by. So, which means they're cashing in. They're looking at the loopholes that Nigeria has created,
but when you look at the traffic,
at the moment Ghana becomes a hub, you don't even want to think about what.
No, but like Wale said, the moment you talk about traffic, you can't beat Nigeria when it comes to that.
Yes,
but however,
whether it's in the aviation sector or any other sector for that matter, Nigeria has the population. The market is there.
Okay.
But how are we taking advantage of it?
Let's go on a break and then we come back. We are not pilots, so
no, we're not.
Let's go on a break and we come back on the program. Stay with us. All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the aviation sector in Nigeria and the functionality. We have a captain in the studio, Dung. He is a safety advocate in the aviation sector. He has been involved in letting the government and drawing their attention to anomalies in the system. We also have Wale Shadari, new editor for the New Telegraph newspaper. He has also been reporting all the issues going on there. Let's bring in Foladele in here to give us a perspective of reaction on social media. Fola, it's good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Ngozi. Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Wale. Lovely to see you. Okay, so let's take some reactions to this very, I don't want to call it interesting, but you would see that there are very interesting reactions here. Okay, first one from Eddie Mausoro. He says, The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority needs to wake up. Aviation industry in Nigeria needs a total overhaul. Next one from Michael TM. He says, flights cancellation, not good for aviation industry in Nigeria. Ben Murray Bruce, senator of course, says, I'm sorry to be the one to burst your bubble, but truth is, Ghana's aviation sector is expanding at the mercy of Nigeria's aviation industry. And someone had an epic reply to that. He said, hope we won't soon be going to Ghana to get a flight to London.
I think it's already happening.
It's
already happening.
Ebony says, the aviation industry in Nigeria is really bad. No checks. The airlines just do whatever they like, and it's like nothing can be done to them. And the last one here from Alan says, aviation in Nigeria is like a ticking time bomb. Hope things improve before it's too late. Captain, I want to take you up on this one because, I mean, you're on the back end. So perhaps you'd be able to answer this one. So someone there talked about flight cancellation, and I heard you talking about quality of service earlier. Of course, you can't talk about quality of service without talking about the growing concerns about, you know, cancelling flights and delaying them. Some people have to wait as long as 6 hours sometimes. I remember someone was talking about that recently. So when flights get cancelled in Nigeria, does it suggest that someone somewhere hasn't done his or her job? Because abroad, when flights get cancelled, it might be because of the weather, for example. A lot of times it's maybe a weather thing. Yeah. But in Nigeria, I mean, our weather is pretty stable. So, you know, what is the problem? Why is it becoming so frequent?
Unfortunately, the operators, airlines, are doing everything possible to scrape in as much money as they want. And one of the reasons which I also experienced for flight cancellation was completely spurious. They did not have enough aircraft to complete the flights. They've scheduled 7 flights for the day. And when it is 10 minutes to board, they now make an announcement and say this flight is delayed for 30 minutes. After 15 minutes, they say it's been delayed for another 30 minutes. Before you know it, they have caught up with the next flight going to the same place. They now combine all of you, and those of you who who come in late, they just tell you, sorry, you can't get on board because you're late, but it's because it is full. So these are the kind of sharp practices that have been going on for, I would say, about 2 years, not just now. What's happening now is we're facing an extra threat. There is a cabal that supplies fuel, and even though it benefits them to sell the fuel, they prefer to hoard it and increase the price. And now fuel is much cheaper in Ghana than Nigeria. So some airlines actually prefer to hop into Ghana, 45 minutes to an hour, take fuel there, pay for landing charges internationally, and come back. It's better for them than the hassle of having to deal with the system here in Nigeria. So yes, a lot of things are happening, albeit not going well, and the system needs to be investigated. A forensic audit of the entire system from top to the bottom has to be done.
Fola. Yes, you're satisfied now.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Rwang, let me ask you, concerning the issue of foreign airlines leaving the country, they've complained that there are no policy incentives to actually encourage them to stay here. What kind of incentives are we looking at?
Well, one of the incentives I would think is the availability of Jet A1. That is one. The second incentive is the charges. Unfortunately, it is true. We have lots of charges that should not be. And this is increasing the cost of doing business. And for the foreign airlines, a major, for every international passenger that passes through, I think there's $50 that comes out of the ticket. And look at the facilities. So people are looking for alternatives, and they would most likely go to Ghana or even some other West African countries. Rwanda, a very tiny country, 26,000 square kilometers area, about 11 million, less than half the population of Lagos. They're trying to have a hub, and they are succeeding. Ghana also is recovering, and it is taking traffic away from us. There seems to be some sort of complacency right from the top. You would expect that Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Aviation will say, I am responsible for this. If it doesn't look good, I don't look good. That should be what is in our minds. And I hope that is what is happening now. But previously, it looks like they just want to leech on the system. And I think there has to be some investigation. I would have said I wanted to recommend the House of Reps or the Senate to investigate, but who is in the Senate? Former Minister of Aviation as well. And who are in the House of Reps? People who benefited also from some of the projects going on in aviation.
Isn't there a committee on aviation in the...
Well, the committee has been there for the same people in the committee I know have been there for...
It's a standing committee in the House.
Yes, it's a standing committee. And sometimes their utterances give me great concern. And especially when there's a change in the minister. I mean, those were the same people who went on and were launching opening of terminals. Suddenly now they're not aware of exactly what was going on with our $500 million Chinese loan and the remodeling that is now not completed. And now we're thinking about concessioning again the same airports.
All right. Now, Shadari, let me come to you on this. The point there is this question of concession. No, we don't want concession. We'll lose our jobs and all of that. It seems the hands of the government are tied, where we know that, like Captain Rwang said earlier on, government has the power. Government has everything. It has the authority to say, no, this is what we want. And for the best of the aviation sector, this is what we have seen, and this is what we want to open up the system and bring in people. But we don't seem to see that happening, even though we have known that the inefficiency, the lack of functionality keeps going on year on year.
Like I said, I'll support airport concession anytime, any day. But it has to be transparent. It has to be open. It has to be done well. If you look at other climes, we've had successful airport concession processes that have gone on smoothly and that have gone on successfully. But in Nigeria, because we do not trust the government, we do not even trust the people that are midwifing this thing, we begin to have trust issues. I think that is why the government is coming out to say, okay, let us meet, tell us what we should do, tell us what how we're going to do these things. And that is why the government, or through the minister, has had stakeholders meeting twice or thrice to tell people that we are actually transparent. These are exactly what we want to do. But the committee is expected to submit its reports, I think, next week. So when the report is submitted, we begin to look at it and have we done what we should do? Have we taken care of all the labor-related issues? Have we done everything to make sure that it's a win-win situation for the concessionaire, for farm workers, and for even the government? The trust is the major issue.
That is lacking.
That is lacking. Exactly.
Okay, so very quickly, Rwang Pam, I'd like you to speak to the issue of concessioning, to be or not to be. Of course, the Senate, we hear, has put that on hold for now. I don't know how effective that is, or to what extent they really want to put it on hold. And then a national carrier, you talked about Rwanda, that's already looking at, Rwanda already has it.
They have a
they have a national carrier.
Yes, they have a very vibrant national carrier, despite their small size. Yes, thank you. Concession is a no-brainer, even in countries that have money. And usually concession becomes a necessity for those that are not liquid, such as us. We do not have even enough money to fully fund the budget. So anything short of concessioning can you know, it's just plain mad.
Okay.
Yes. Privatization, some people are looking at, oh, are you selling? We're not selling of the airports, but it is some sort of privatization. But it is just time-bound. It's like renting rather than selling. So that is why it is a very good idea. Again, we have lost credibility and integrity. We need to restore this. And I think those who manage the system before now do not see themselves as being accountable to the people. They think they're doing the people a favor by providing roads, by providing airports. No, you're not. That is what we need in order to move up from being a transitory nation to a developed nation. Yes. And that is the job you are paid to do as head of the system.
Okay, so is a national carrier desirable?
A national carrier is desirable, but not, will I say, indispensable.
Okay.
If I can say, I do not see a national carrier happening in Nigeria in the tenure of this administration, which is about 2.5 years to go. We just do not have the funds. Unless something rain of gold comes in from heaven,
miraculous.
That does not make sense. Unless, of course, we go into a partnership. But I'm afraid if we go into a partnership whereby the external investor has more equity in, that means we lose control of that national carrier. And diplomacy and international relations is all about preserving your private interest first. So that's why I say a national carrier is a good to have, but not really necessary now. Let us rescue the airlines. Well, not really rescue. Let's make sure that we guard the airlines that are currently existing so that they can be sustainable.
All right.
Okay. And not have the unenviable position of having the worst airline in the world.
And the worst airport.
The worst airport.
That is correct.
Port Harcourt Airport.
All right. Captain Dung Rwang, thanks for coming on the program today. And Wale Shadari, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for
inviting. And we wish
the
Nigerian aviation sector well as we move ahead. Now, this is where we come to the end of today's edition of the program. I guess we have drawn your attention to so many things happening, especially from Ondo State moving forward and the aviation sector. I am Mike Okwache. Have a great day ahead.
Hope to have you join us again tomorrow, Tuesday. I am Ngozi. And will have a great day. Bye now.